What's up, everybody? Garrett back here. Welcome back. This morning, we've got another special show for you. Something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I knew when I did this, I didn't want to just give you a ranking talking about these movies. I wanted to find somebody that I could do it with, somebody who likes Frank Henenlotter as much as I do. And how would I have found the right person to do this with? But I had to think in my head, who would be the perfect person to be on here with me? And I had to try to think of the most sick and wild and twisted and vile person I could find. And that person is 1/3 of the Rad Pack, Justin David. Welcome to the show.
It's so early. I can't believe you got me up at this hour to do this.
Can you believe that? You usually sleep in on Saturday mornings, don't you?
I usually sleep in, but I got up early special for you. Thanks for having me, man.
Well,
I'm happy to be here.
No problem, man. It's cool to have you on, and we haven't done anything on this channel, just us two, in a long time. Probably since like before the Rad Pack even started, I would say. Because we did a couple videos together for Rad recommendations way back, like when I first started the channel.
It's been a couple years. I think we did just one of the guys. Didn't we do that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we did
Teen Wolf?
We did Can't Buy Me Love.
Can't Buy Me Love. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Fucking like 2 or 3 years ago, dude. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, man. We were talking to some sick, badass comedies from back in the day. So
yeah,
very, very cool. So it's awesome to have you back. And I knew that you were a huge fan of the Henenlotter flicks as much as I am. And we really haven't had a chance to kind of dip into them. And, you know, I thought this would be a perfect time because I know it's Patty Mullen's birthday coming up in a couple days. So that's cool. And, you know, some of these movies had anniversaries and stuff. So I was like, you know what? Like, let's talk about it. Basket Case just got a 4K. Let's finally just dip into his library, which is actually kind of small of a library. But honestly, dude, like, I'm looking at the stuff here and I'm like, I pretty much like, I'm going to say, like, all of these movies to some extent. It's actually kind of hard to rank some of them, I think. But this should be interesting because I don't really know, you know, when it comes to these movies, which one's your favorite or not. But I mean, we'll get into it. But when's like the first time, you know, you kind of discovered his stuff?
Probably later on. I didn't really. I don't think I caught his stuff back in the day. I feel like he's kind of like popular, like cult, obviously, but I don't remember. Do you remember his movies playing on like HBO and so I just don't remember them. So I honestly don't remember the first time that I saw his movie. It was either Frankenhooker or Basket Case, I'm sure. But I probably found out about Frank Henenlotter within the last 10, 15 years. Like I didn't totally grow up on his stuff, but he's such an interesting guy outside of his filmmaking. He's this guy that doesn't give a shit, just kind of makes his own little weirdo movies, and each movie has their own vibe. They're all super low budget. His shit is like right in my wheelhouse when it comes
that's
to like,
why I thought you were a big fan forever, because I'm like, this is like, if I had to like really pinpoint Justin movies, it would be like a lot of these.
You got the practical effects, you got like weird, bizarre premises that go like way into like crazy body horror. It almost has like kind of a homemade feel, even though they're shot with a decent budget, like 35mm film. They still feel kind of gritty. A lot of it has to do with that whole like 42nd Street gritty New York vibe. These movies are, every single one of them is like entrenched in just that New York feel, which is like a whole character in and of itself. But yeah, these are Justin movies for sure. I love how fucking weird they are, man.
They are, and it's like, and they also got that touch of comedy in them as well. So
right,
like it's, you know, you can, they're a little bit tongue in cheek, and but at the same time, I just think like with the practical effects and stuff, they're just really gnarly kind of movies. And you know, for me, I think the same thing. It's either Frankenhooker or Basket Case was the first time that I discovered him, and maybe I didn't even realize that those movies were connected at all, like through him. My uncle showed me Basket Case when I first started really getting into horror, because he loves that one. And I just remember being like so enthralled with it because like just the story itself and how cool it was, the practical effects. And, you know, you had this, you know, these twins that were cut and one of them was kind of evil. And it was just a really cool concept. And with Frankenhooker, I found that by accident. I was at a video store with my friend Scott. It was actually a movie gallery, and we were renting a movie like on a Saturday night. His dad drove us there and dropped us off in the front and said, go get something. I remember just like walking through the horror section. All of a sudden, we're like, Frankenhooker, what is this? And, so we looked at the back, we're like, let's get this. And we got that and went back to his house. And man, we had a freaking ball with it. So I don't remember which one came first for me, but those definitely are the first two that I remember. And then when I kind of realized they were connected, then I started trying to find more of his stuff.
Did his movies pretty much all go to VHS, or did he get theatrical releases for these?
Man, I really don't know that answer. I'm gonna say that like
probably locally,
Case
regionally
had some stuff. Frankenhooker, maybe, but I don't know if any of the other ones did.
I imagine he probably just showed them on 42nd Street at all those like grindhouse theaters and shit like that.
100%. I think exactly, that's kind of how he built his name up. And I have met him before briefly. He was at a convention. They had a Frankenhooker reunion, and he was part of it. So I did meet him probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe. But
it was a full-on like Q&A screening with him. And
no, so it was a Chiller Theater Con, and like usually it's just like a one of those horror conventions where basically they're just sitting at a table and they had like a Frankenhooker section. So you walked over and it was like Patty Mullen, James Lawrence, and then, Frank Henenlotter all sitting there. And it just said like Frankenhooker reunion. You brought stuff over and met them, had them sign some stuff, took pictures and stuff with them. So it was no screening or anything. At least I didn't know if there was a screening that night, but I just walked over and chatted with them and met them there. But they were just kind of part of one of the three of like the 100 guests that were there at the time. But I was super excited because again, I really do love that movie. Now, coming in today, we wanted to go into a little bit of a ranking. And like, again, there's only 6 of these movies we're going to talk about, so this shouldn't take us long, but I figured, as we're kind of going down the rank, seeing where these movies fall in our ranking, just chatting a little bit about each one, when the first time we saw it, a little bit about the movie, what we think of it and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting, like I said, to see where we put these movies, because I know our tastes are similar yet different when it comes to specific things. So I think mine, when I look at it, it seems pretty straightforward, I think. I don't think there's any like deep cuts here or hot takes or anything like that when I look at my list, but maybe yours is different.
Yeah.
But I guess we can get right down to it, man. Like when I think of these 6 movies, I'm going to say if I had to take the one I like the least out of all these, I'm going to have to say it's going to be Bad Biology is going to be the one that I would have to put at number 6. That came out in 2008. And I can remember being so excited when this came out. And day one, I got this DVD, right away, because I'm like, oh, Henenlotter, this is awesome. He hasn't done stuff in a long time. And I'm not even going to say it's bad. It's not terrible. At the time, I actually kind of liked it. But then on rewatch, I like it a little bit less. But it definitely seems like a movie I think that you would really like. I mean, it's just so out there and wild that it feels like his type of movie. It feels like his movie, but you can tell it's like 2008 rather than 80s and 90s, the way it's kind of done.
Bad Biology is a really interesting one. Frank Henenlotter, for the first time, he collaborated with this old school, I think he's from New York, this New York rapper called R.A. the Rugged Man. So he's a hip hop guy and he helped produce it and also write it. So he had a lot of input. Like there's a lot of weird things that don't seem exactly like stuff is in his other movies. And it's because he collaborated with this guy to make this movie. Super, super low budget. There's some great special features on this. This is my number 5 too.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, this is my number 5 too, or 6. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
There's a ton of special features that kind of digs into how this movie came to be. And it's a movie that Frank Henenlotter wanted to make, but I don't think he could have made it. He couldn't get money anywhere. So this rapper helped out. You'll notice there's a lot of
wouldn't be able to get any kind of money from anybody. He's a big enough director, you would think, in the genre, right? That he'd come back and he couldn't get any funding.
It's so weird. But you'll notice like the music's strange. Like R.A. the Rugged Man hits a bunch of his music. He put his dad and his friends, like when he's doing that hip hop shoot, there's a weird rapper scene that comes in. That was more of Rugged Man's collaboration. The scene with that old man in the junkyard kind of talking into the camera. That was R.A. the Rugged Man's dad. He kept putting a bunch of people into it. So it feels weird. It's such a weird movie. It's definitely held back by its budget, but the premise is so Frank Henenlotter.
Why don't you talk about the plot of this movie?
So essentially you have Jennifer and I forget the two guys. There's a guy and a girl. This guy this guy has this insatiable like lust for sex, and he basically injects his dick with steroids, right? Is that what it was? Injecting his dick with steroids.
Ready to go, yeah.
Yeah, and it starts growing and basically becomes a life of himself. It's very much, he basically grows Aylmer from brain damage in between his legs. And there's another girl that is like addicted to sex who like kills every man that she bangs and kills them. Why? She'll like strangle them while she's banging them. So you have these two crazy sex maniacs who meet, and you think like maybe this is going to be a beautiful love story, like these two crazy sex fiends found each other, but it doesn't really play out like a love story. It's kind of like this weird tragedy where everything goes wrong. The guy's dick breaks off and runs away from him and turns into
it's like the gatekeeper meets the keymaster, right? Basically.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's so freaking weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense. He has that weird like fuck machine that he straps himself up to. That's like, it's.
I mean, you know what though? For the budget, I mean, there are some decent practical effects in it. I think, like for the budget, you know, there is some decent stuff in there. You know, when I first saw this in 2008, I you know, I liked it a lot more than I do now. But it is wild to me that Severin put out that really nice edition, and they just announced that edition is going to be on sale this week, you know, for their big sale, that edition. And it's like like a media book almost, like,
yeah, it's like a media book with a real glossy thing. I don't think they made too many of them, so the fact that there's still some left and it's on sale means that I don't know how many people pick this one up. But if you are a Frank Henenlotter fan, you will at least get some enjoyment out of it. Like if you enjoy Brain Damage and Basket Case and Frankenhooker, it's in that same wheelhouse. It's just a lot lower budget. Like you said, it definitely feels very 2000s. Got some weird music choices, but the performances are pretty good. It's like the girl who plays like the lead chick, the sex maniac girl. It was the only movie she ever did, and she
I did remember that.
Yeah, she has no social media presence. You can't find her. She's like nowhere to be found. So this is like a little time capsule.
She's embarrassed of this or what?
I think she kind of just did it for fun. She was running with some weird people at the time, from what I heard in the interviews, and she doesn't regret the movie. She had a good time doing it, but she just doesn't care to like. She kind of just moved on. She wasn't trying to be an actress, so she just disappeared into the sunset. But it's a hell of a role for your only role.
Yeah. She was probably like, "Oh wait, this is what Hollywood's like. I'm out of here.
Yeah,
what the hell are they making me do here?"
Because she's like, you know, she's doing sex stuff like for 90% of her on-screen time. She's naked the whole time. So kudos to her for like giving it her all, because the movie wouldn't have worked if the two leads didn't commit like fully to their roles, and they definitely do.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's our number 6. I had a feeling like I knew that was going to be my number 6. I wasn't sure because I knew you were a fan of this, so I was curious on if this was going to sneak up somewhere on your list. But when I
hate that it's I hate that it's at the last because I like it. I feel like I'm being kind of mean to the movie, but I mean, it just kind of falls where it falls. You know what I mean? It just is what it is.
Well, I think what it is to be honest, these next 5 in weird ways are pretty solid and strong. This is our number 6, so I guess we can just continue on and see what happens. So the next one for me is going to be from 1991, and that's Basket Case 3. Now, I think this is actually fun as hell of a flick, and which is strange because it doesn't get talked about that much compared to the other ones, and it's, you know, it came out in 91. That's like 10 years after the original or so. So, I mean, I'm surprised it's as good as it is. But what's interesting to me about it is that the effects are so wild in that movie. Like they are like freaked level of effects. And
yeah, the effects were actually done by Gabe Bartalos, who did Leprechaun. He did Basket Case 2 and 3, Leprechaun, Skin Deep, a bunch of other stuff, and he also did the original like sculpt and everything for Aylmer and all that stuff. So he's kind of had his in-house guy to do the effects. I could have swore it was Screaming Mad George, but it's Gabe Bartalos. But you're right, the effects are like top freaking notch.
Oh yeah, for a third movie of a franchise, I
Yeah.
felt like I was shocked on how much the effects were really heavy in this. And I mean, that couldn't have been cheap, man.
Fuck
Because
no.
like every person had this crazy, like this is like, Yuzna type shit here. Like,
Mhm.
it was really wild, and they were fun and cool, and it takes an interesting turn. They all live in this kind of like house now with other like freaks, I guess, and everybody's kind of got a character. And then all of a sudden they're like banding together to fight like the police or something like that. Like, so I mean, there's a lot to it. He has, Belial has babies, and dude, that scene at the end where Belial's basically inside like that alien robot looking thing, and he looks like Krang or whatever, like walking around in the thing, and it's like, holy shit, like they really went all out in this movie.
And it's almost like they got more impressive. Like the second one has a lot more practical effects where you bring in like more like freak type characters, and the third one is even more. And I feel like these are the sequels, both 2 and 3 are like the movies that I feel like they just don't exist. Like you said, nobody talks about these movies whatsoever. And I could put them easily in, at least from a effects perspective, like in a top list of like practical effects movies of all time. It's like it is up there with like Freaked and all that shit.
Oh, 100%. It's impressive as hell, and it's fun. I think this is a fun movie. It may not be as gritty and raw as the original and horror-esque, but I mean, it's just a fun as hell flick. So it's sad that, like we said, I had to put this at number 5 because I do feel that these movies that he has, there's only 6, but I mean, these last 5 are really, really strong. Now, what did you put at 5?
Gosh, I'm second guessing my my placement right here. I really am, because I feel like I'm going to be doing, I guess when you do a ranking like this, you really can't overthink it. You got to go for your first.
Well, that's the problem too, because we're saying that we like all these. So what ends up happening is if we put this at 5, people are going to comment and say, "I can't believe you hate Basket Case 3 so much." It's like, no, I like all of them, but something's going to go.
I'm just going to go with it, and it's going to be even worse than that because I have regular Basket Case.
Whoa! Holy
behind
shit.
the sequels, and it's as we were talking about it, I'm like, I almost guessed like how could I not have Basket Case higher on the list? But everything that we just talked about is what I love so much about it.
I would say the sequels are more Justin movies if I really have to think about it. Like, I really do think, like, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, they both feel like Justin movies.
I'm such a mark for just over the top practical effects. And I love this movie, just like Bad Biology. I like that a lot too.
You are so fried in those comments, bro.
I know. I feel like I'm fucking up, but I'm going with my heart, man. I'm going with my heart on this one.
Justin hates Basket Case. How dare
I love Basket Case, but it's rough around the edges and it feels super raw. But these are just so much fun, just basically from a fun perspective. I don't know. I've seen all these movies maybe 2 or 3 times each, so I haven't seen one of them like so much more than the other. If I would have maybe seen this one first and watched it a bunch and it hit my heart in a certain way, maybe so. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to that. The first Basket Case at number 5.
Yeah, Basket Case is one that I've watched a lot. I've watched that one way more than I watched the sequels. But yeah, it's different. I mean, it's raw, it's gritty, it's freaky, it's weird, it's way more of a low budget film. Belial looks, he's stop motion. He really looks a lot better in the sequels. I mean, it's weird because there was more time put into him in the sequels to make him look cooler, but I prefer the original Belial because
I almost forgot about the stop motion in that movie.
Yeah,
there totally is.
But I like the original Belial because he's just, it is so kind of lame looking. And to be honest, Belial in a basket is like one of those props that I've always wanted to try to find. I remember going to stores back, even before I had this house, and trying to find a replica basket to match the one from the movie, to at least put in like my movie room in the corner to like pretend Belial could be in there.
That big classic movie picnic basket.
But you'd be surprised, it's not that easy to find. I remember having a picture and like going to like all these different home stores and like trying to see like, oh nope, that doesn't look like it. Oh nope, that doesn't look. It's actually, it seems so like standard, but it's really not. It's either, you know, way too big, or the color's off, or maybe it doesn't have the same kind of hood or
It was
whatever.
probably
Like,
special made because they were, you know, controlling him from below, probably in those certain shots. I don't know how they filmed it, but it was probably custom. You think it's possible?
probably, but I think at the same time, now in this, I mean, this is going back to me trying to find this thing in like 2007,
Yeah.
right? So, or 2008. Me trying to find it now in 2024, I bet the internet's probably got tons of Belial and basket props out there now. You know, I just haven't really looked, but I would love to get a life-size Belial and basket. Where the hell I'd put him at this point, I don't know, but it is one of those grail pieces that I've always wanted, is some kind of like realistic looking prop of life-size Belial in a basket. And I know I've seen them out there. Like, I've seen people on Instagram post different ones that they've had. You know, I'm sure they're not cheap if I was to find a nice one, but I'm surprised it was never something like Trick or Treat Studios ever did, because I mean, what is Belial made out of? He's going to be just kind of like some kind of
big ball of foam. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it's probably an expensive way to make him, but you know, you'd have to include the basket and whatnot too. But I wish that somebody would do like, you know, one that's readily available, so you're not paying, you know, Etsy prices for custom stuff or whatever. But
if I remember correctly on the bad biology thing, it's on one of these Blu-rays. They do a pretty extended interview with Gabe, and he takes a tour of his shop. I want to say it was Bad Biology. I think it was a documentary from 2008, and he still has the old props, some of the old like Belials. I think Frank Henenlotter still has some of those old original Belial props. It would be so cool to see those.
100%.
We need Tots or NECA or somebody to make that. That would be a cool prop to have. It'd be expensive as fuck though.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think it should be. I mean, you think, I would say,
they'd squeeze
Trick or Treat
500.
Studios did it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, man, I don't mean, the Chuckies were like what, 400. I mean, I think there's a lot more detail in a Chucky than it would be in a Belial. Belial's just foam with a little bit of detail in there.
Yeah, it's true.
Realistic eyes or something. But wow, basket case at number 5, dude.
I know. That's a wild take.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go next. I mean, like I said, mine's actually pretty standard, I think. I'm going to have to say basket case 2 is going to be my number 3 or 4, I guess we would say, based on how we're working this. But again, I like basket case 2 a lot. I think it's a great sequel. To me, it kind of falls in the middle of like the grittiness of 1, the campiness of 3. And it's kind of like that happy medium where like it feels like a transition between the two as far as the tone of the movie, where, you know, it supposedly takes place after the first one, but it's really almost, you know, 8 years later or something like that. But they get out of the hospital and, you know, they're trying to kind of stay undercover, and, you know, they find somebody to take them in, but it's still got that horror element, a lot more horror element. To me, this, I don't know why, but the tone of this one always reminds me of like the tone difference between Psycho and Psycho 2.
Yeah.
Like, there's a little bit of a tone shift, but it feels similar, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, so it feels similar, but it is a little bit different. It kind of has a change of tone. This is what this feels like to me, where it's fun, but it's still got a little more horror elements to it. Feels like a movie you would have seen a lot, like on TV or something, on like a Saturday afternoon or something around Halloween. But I didn't see Basket Case 2 until this DVD from Synapse came out a long time ago. And I know we were talking about it, but I also have this, and I think you have this as well, this Second Sight Steelbook trilogy.
I don't have the Steelbook. I just have like the regular Blu-ray.
Which I think this is probably way out of print now, because I've had this a long time.
I didn't even know they did a Steelbook. That's freaking cool.
It's very glossy. But is this the only way these are on Blu-ray? The sequels?
Still? I don't know if I've ever seen individual releases of them.
I don't think so. I think this is it. If you want the sequels on HD, I think it's probably this right now only.
Damn, these are old Second Sight releases, huh?
Yeah, this is probably one of the first Second Sight releases I've ever gotten. I mean, this has to be what, 2012 this came out.
Wow.
So that's 12 years ago. That's insane.
So this one came out a few years later. It looks like this is 2015, packaging
Oh, wow.
2015. So
Interesting. But yeah, so I have the standalone Synapse DVDs here, and then just the second sight, and then of the sequels. So yeah, super fun, great trilogy. I really would put over the Basket Case as a trilogy. I think that it's tonally it changes, but I think it's in a pretty fun way.
Yeah, they're all worth watching. Second one's good too.
All right, now what's your next one, man? This is middle of the road right here. This is the middle of the pack.
The middle of the road. Actually, since I don't have the individual release, I'm also going to go with number 2 as the middle. Yeah, so 3 is going to be a little higher on the on the ranking here. But yeah, number 2, part 2,
Basket Case 2. All right, yes, now we're in our top 3. My 3 favorites from Henenlotter. Now I'm going to tell you that it was starting to get a little tougher here. I think this one is in the spot I wanted it to be. I think my favorite and second favorite are really, they could have flipped either way. But my number 3, my third favorite is going to be from 1988.
Oh,
Brain Damage.
Okay.
Ever since the day I was born, drugs used to say I was on. I never knew which way I was going.
Classic
Brain Damage. Hell yeah.
He just dropped a new track today.
Did he?
Yeah.
Sick. But this is the Arrow Blu-ray release. I had to get this. I mean, this is freaking fantastic movie. I don't know if it's got that classic art right there.
I won't say my ranking, but
yeah, I have a feeling that, knowing you, Brain Damage is going to be higher on your list.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
But man,
I thought it would be a little higher on your list, to be honest with you. I thought it would be at least.
We've only got 3 left.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing this one on DVD for the first time. I bought it when I was really, getting into his stuff. Picked it up. I think Synapse did the DVD as well. And I loved it, man. It really was like, it felt kind of Basket Case. It felt way more out there than that. It was more polished, I felt like, in specific ways. You had a new character, Elmer. And what I thought was really cool about this movie was I marked out, dude, at that scene where they're on the subway and all of a sudden Belial and what's the kid's name? Holy shit.
He's sitting there on the train. Dude. I forget his name. Yeah, that was so crazy to see that.
What the hell? I can't believe I can't think of his name now.
Was it David or
Dwayne?
Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne.
So when Dwayne and Belial come onto the train and he's got the basket in his hand and he looks at the other guy and the guy's I'm thinking to myself, like, holy shit, we've got like a multiverse here. These are connected. This is insane. Like, I thought in my head at that time how brilliant that was. And I thought for sure, I'm like, oh my God, if we get a crossover movie, this is going to be the sickest thing. And we never did. And
that would have been amazing.
Still bummed out about that. And I even look at it now and I'm like, what are these guys still around? Can we get a collab going right now? Because I met Dwayne as well at a convention. And he had the basket and he had the bunch of little baby Belials with him and stuff like that. I took a picture with him. I would love to see even now to do something, because I just felt like it was a missed opportunity to go off and have some kind of like either versus movie or, team up or something like that.
Especially as the sequels got weirder too with Basket Case, it would have been perfect, like to bring Aylmer in on the second or third one or something.
And the thing is too, it's like this came out in 88. The sequel was 1990, and then the third one was 91. So like, they could have easily shoehorned him in somewhere,
Yeah, that would have.
Now there was no other collab, right? Like he didn't pop in one of those movies at all and made a cameo, did he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But yeah, that was my number 3, Brain Damage. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend that one for sure.
I have more to say on that one for sure.
We'll get there. All right, what's your number 3? I have an idea.
It's going to be the Basket Case 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's we already talked about it, but yeah, that's a little high, pretty high on the list. Again, I'm such a mark for just stupid practical effects driven movies, and I just love those. So yeah, number 3, Kind of higher on the list until I started ranking. I was kind of surprised myself at how my ranking. I don't know. I kind of surprised myself with it, but I just kind of went with first instinct and just banged them all out. So,
well, I mean, I think at least it's showing people that it's worthy of a watch, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people watching this right now that maybe have never seen the sequels to Basket Case. And like I said, I don't think it's one that, and from the outside looking in, you're like, Basket Case 3, like, oh God, I'm sure that's good. Because, by the time a lot of these movies get to part 3, it gets really kind of off. And it is different, but I mean, it starts to get real shitty. The budget starts to get really low. But I actually think, like you said, the budget's probably the lowest on the first one. And then it seemingly gets increased a little bit as we go.
As you go for the sequels, you got to kind of know what you're going in for. Like, you're going in for something like a Freaked, or even something as silly as like Mom and Dad Save the World, or something like that, like Stay Tuned. Like, it's bonkers, completely ridiculous.
What's that other one there?
Frog
with Chevy
Town?
Chase, Aykroyd, all them.
Oh yeah, Nothing But Trouble.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's some elements kind of that, with like just the crazy effects, all these creatures running around. Yeah. So, but again, like I said, if it's that high on your list, hopefully people listening to this will be like, I will give it a shot, because it's not readily available. So, I'm sure it could be streaming somewhere at this point. But all right, top 2, man. This for me was hard. This was really hard for me. But I'm gonna have to go with Basket Case. Is gonna have to be my number 2. Like I said, I've loved this movie for a long time. I've always wanted to have a life-size Belial. I met Dwayne. I mean, I'm always a big mark for this. I thought it was just, like you said, it was gritty, but at the same time, there was a seriousness to it. But with the idea of Belial, I just think it's just one of those ideas that may never fly nowadays. Like, we saw it a little bit with Malignant, right? Like, so I remember when I saw that coming, I said, I don't know who I was watching it with, but I was like, they're going to do a Basket Case here. I know they are.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it's like they did. And I was like, holy shit. And, they had to have had some inspiration.
100%.
And they just kind of took it to a new level. And I was like, that's so cool, because it is a cool ass story. It is a cool ass story that you get a jointed twin and they're a little bit evil, and then it's turning you evil. And I just think it was really cool. And with this one, they're going after the people who took them apart, the doctors and stuff like that. And basically they left Belial for dead. He was kind of a big waste after they got rid of him off of his body. And then
didn't they just like dump him in the trash or something?
Yeah. And then the brother went and got him, so it is a cool story. It just was a very low budget movie, but like you said, it feels dirty. It feels very 80s horror-esque, and that's what I always appreciated about it. But when I look at my final 2, I have to put this at number 2 for sure.
Yeah, best case is great. I love how also throughout that movie, like, you could tell they have like 4 or 5 different Belials, so they look different from like scene to scene. It's so funny. Should I go to my next one?
Oh man,
that was your number 2, right?
Yeah, I'm curious to see where you go here.
You probably know what my number 1 is, but my number 2, this kind of tells, is Frankenhooker.
Wow.
And this was tough. I love this movie. As with a lot of these rankings that you do, when you get down to like the 2 and 1 kind of things, they're so close that they can almost interchange. But this one is this was edged out by my number 1. But yeah, Frankenhooker's so fucking good, man. It's like so classic.
So good. I mean, that'll ease right into my number 1 Frank Henenlotter pick is Frankenhooker.
Hell yeah.
Like I said, when I saw this for the first time, my friend Scott and I found it at the video store, and the cover alone, we were like, what is this? And we brought it home, and man, he had such a freaking ball with this movie. Like, it's cool. The aesthetic is really good. It's just so bonkers crazy. You've got, the scene of him like trying to find the parts for her, and he's got all the prostitutes there, and he's like check marking. Oh, I like this leg here. I like this. Oh, I like these breasts over here. And he's like making notes on all the girls, and then he gives them the super crack, and then like they just
super crack. It's so fucking ridiculous.
And you know what else is funny is they have a guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I knew it, but that Jack dude that's in like a couple of these movies. the pimp, what is that
He's
his name
fucking
was?
ripped.
Yeah, he was so jacked. The pimp guy. I love that dude, and he's also in Brain Damage as well. He's in the
Oh, he is, isn't he?
shower. Remember,
Yeah, you're
he's in the
right.
shower scene or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought that guy rules. Patty Mullen kills it in this role. Like, I mean, it's definitely the role that she's going to be remembered for forever. I see her at conventions a lot. Her lines are always really big, surprisingly. Like,
That's
because you're
awesome.
not sure how many people are fans of this movie or have seen this because it came out in 1990. I don't know, like we said before, if this had any kind of theatrical run. I doubt it. Maybe, like you said, maybe small theaters. Maybe it did its best work on VHS, but that VHS tape, man, I had the one with the little button on it. That's still like one of the biggest grails
Oh, yeah.
ever. It was you press the button, it said, "You want a date?" And I'm surprised no one's ever been able to replicate that either on like a slip cover for the movie or whatever.
Mhm.
I hope someday if it gets a 4K that they can do like we had a glowing eye slip cover from Severin. We can't do a talking want a date slip. I mean, that would be sick.
I feel like if it does eventually get some kind of crazy 4K release that they'll hopefully do that, like a Vinegar Syndrome or, a
It
Severin or
should, because
something.
that's what's so like that is such an iconic VHS. I mean, that's going for easily $200 to $500 in decent
Oh, yeah.
condition on eBay. So to have something that kind of mimics the lore of that VHS, because that's the part everybody remembers. And then
Mhm.
after that kind of wore out, they got, they put out the VHS without the sticker on it, without the button. So then you had the regular one too. But man, it's such a fun movie. I'm sure there's people out there that are this style of movie is not their favorite. I can totally understand that. But for me, it is one of those movies that, it falls in that line of just wackiness, but fun. I mean, the practical effects are still really cool in this. You start thinking about movies like Society and Reanimator and From
Yeah.
Beyond. And I feel like these Henenlotter flicks all can kind of fit in that same realm of those movies. And I'm a big fan of that kind of practical effect work.
Especially that big
So
scene where all the different parts start converging from that big pool or tub or
Tant
whatever the
and
fuck it
whatever.
is. He looks just like him.
Oh, 100% he does.
It's like the
He's a
Wish
funny
version, though.
dude. Yeah, he was also in a couple other movies around this time. He was in Street Trash. He had a little cameo in
Oh,
Street Trash.
yeah.
So it was always fun to kind of see some of these characters pop up in other movies that were very similar in tone
Yeah.
to these movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to Frankenhooker and going back to that convention where I met everybody, I will show you this. So one of the scenes in the movie that I always found hilarious, especially because the way he talks like this, and you want that? And he had that scene where he's got the head of his girlfriend's head, and he's having dinner, and he's pouring the thing. Oh, you like that Beaujolais, don't you? Or whatever. So, so I bought a bottle of Beaujolais, right?
Bottle of
And I had him sign it, dude. It says, "You like that Beaujolais, don't you?"
Oh,
You see it
that's
right there at the top?
great. That's got to be. Has he ever signed one of those before? Did he mention that
He
at all?
said no, and then on the side it's James Lawrence right there, and then
Oh, dude.
Patty Mullins on the other side of this bottle.
That's so that's like the
How
exact
sick is
bottle
that?
that's in the movie and shit?
I don't know if it's the exact bottle, but it's the same kind of
Same kind of wine?
wine. Yeah,
Beaujolais?
Beaujolais.
What the hell
Yeah,
is a
so
Beaujolais?
I don't know, but this is a 2013 bottle right here. Beaujolais signed. You really like that Beaujolais, don't you? It says on there.
Did he have to Google the spelling or did he know how to spell it off top?
He
I feel like
he knew how to
I guess
spell
it
it
probably
on
says
top.
it right on the bottle there.
You should see the pictures too of I'll try to maybe put him on this video, a couple of the pictures of me meeting them, and he's handing it to me. He's got the doctor's jacket on, like the scientist's jacket.
Oh, he
And
wears
he's
that at
handing
the
me the
convention?
bottle. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
Took a lot of
man.
cool pictures with it of him
That's
handing me the
awesome.
bottle. He loved it. He was like, I've never had to do this before. And so this is one of my favorite pieces of my collection because it's just so different. I went through a period of time where I was trying to get different things signed, from people, more unique items.
You do have some weird thing, like your baby oil signed by
baby oil. I've got a thing of garlic, like a thing of garlic powder. And it's the dude who played Sam in Lost Boys. What's his real? Oh, Edward Herman. And it says he wrote on it, "I like garlic, but this is a little much."
But I like
a big
garlic, but this is a little much.
So I was going through a period of time where I was trying to get unique things signed. I actually bought a another bottle of the same style. Instead of it being garlic powder, it's mesquite. So I was gonna have uh Peter Weller sign it, because in the movie Firstborn, he's explaining to the kids how to cook on the grill, and he's like, "You need mesquite. Mesquite would make your tennis shoes look good." So I bought the mesquite thing, and I'm like, someday I'm gonna have him sign this. Imagine handing him a thing of mesquite.
Thinking outside, he's like, "What the fuck?" Thinking outside
like,
the box, though, man.
Especially Weller too, because he doesn't put up with weird shit. He's gonna be like, "What the hell's
Right.
your problem, dude?" You know. So I haven't had the balls to give it to him yet.
That's
But,
cool.
hopefully,
I don't have
hopefully
any.
someday.
I don't have much from. I only have a couple little collectible things, but I do have this from. I don't even remember where I got it, but it's a VHS case for Frankenhooker, but you open it up, it's the soundtrack on cassette
What the heck?
in a little
What is that?
clamshell. Isn't that cool? There was a
That is
company
cool.
that had these in a few different movies. I'll try to. Oh, this is Synapse. This was on Synapse website.
Wow, that totally passed me by. I had
Yeah.
no idea. I have the soundtrack on vinyl, but I don't have that little thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like a little puffy clamshell.
That
Super
is
cool.
cool, man. It almost looks like a mini VHS tape, right?
Yeah, and this is number 2. So this I don't know if they're still continuing with this line. It includes high definition digital download of the film as well. So look on their website. Maybe they have more of these.
How long ago do you think you got that?
Maybe 3 years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. Something like that.
Cool.
That slipped by you?
It totally slipped by me, but I know what your number 1 is.
Yep.
Is it because this is about drugs?
It's all about drugs, Brian.
Brian.
This is and I have something really cool to show off here in a minute. This, I think, is like this was him at his like best as like a real filmmaker. I feel like this one really feels the most like an actual movie, but it still has all his crazy stuff. There's such a weird vibe to this movie. The soundtrack. Oh, I have the soundtrack to this on vinyl as well. Everything about this movie is so eerie and weird, and I love all of the blue, especially that scene when he's like falling into the floor and the water goes over his face. I don't know. I find this movie like super relaxing for some reason.
It's the aesthetic of it is really cool. I mean, all the neons and all the like the lights and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really vibey. I guess I'll show this thing. So this thing I picked up probably, I don't know, at this point it was probably maybe like 7 years ago, 6 years, and it has this little platform. I've talked about this a couple times. This comes off so I can get kind of a close look at it, but it's pretty.
Hi, Justin.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
It looks so funny. It looks just like him.
I mean, it is the sculpt is amazing. It's done by it's either like Down Productions or DWN.
Yeah. Oh,
so it's done by him. But what was interesting is I bought this off of out of a Facebook group. Somebody was selling it, but he for some reason didn't know where he got it or didn't want to say. I don't know. It was so weird. So I spent a couple years trying to track down who made this because it was so well done. I was like, somebody's got to know who did this. So I started posting it in other horror movie groups, and somebody mentioned, hey, I think that looks like DWN. So I messaged him and he said, oh, nice mod. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, I just bought it just like this. I didn't touch it. And he's like, oh no, somebody did a repaint. That base isn't mine. And they added teeth. And
I know what I was going to say, that one actually looks a little bit more realistic than a DWN one does.
Yeah.
And it was the teeth that made me think that.
Yeah, they're really delicate, kind of glued in there. But yeah, he said somebody had definitely done a lot of extra work to it. DWN does great work. He makes cool masks and stuff. But that thing is like, it looks exactly like the movie. I just love that piece. But yeah, Brain Damage is such a great movie. This is such a cool release too. This is one I didn't rebuy Basket Case in 4K. I didn't really feel like I needed it. I kept it. If this one got a 4K, I would definitely want another release of it. And I hope it comes in the same.
I also think too that Brain Damage is a movie that I don't think many people. I think it's been overlooked by a lot of people. It's not one that gets talked about as much as Frankenhooker and Basket Case. I don't think.
I don't know why. It's so fucking good.
Because I discovered that on accident. Like I discovered that because I was collecting Synapse stuff, and I was like, "Oh, Brain Damage, Synapse, okay." And then all of a sudden I'm looking at the back. I'm like, oh, Henenlotter did this too. Cool. And then when I brought it home, I was like, wow, that was really good. And it wasn't one that was on my radar, due to people talking about it. It was just one that I happened to come across at a store. But again, we're also going back to, the mid 2000s, maybe 2006 or something. So, I mean, the internet wasn't the same as it was now, where like people would be talking about this stuff. I was on some message boards here and there, but nobody ever really talked about brain damage at all. So, I hope that maybe people watching this that haven't will give it a chance, because, like I said, it came in my number 3. It came in as number 1. It's a cool
movie. If people haven't seen it, it's about an alien that he's a very phallic demon. He's about 12, 13 inches tall. At the beginning of the movie, you see he's been with some kind of different host family. So you kind of open with Aylmer escaping his host family, and that's where he finds Brian. And essentially what he does is he lives off eating people's brains, the little alien. But how he does it is he drugs his host. So he'll latch onto the back of the neck and emit this hallucinogenic drug so that he can like almost control the host in a way and keep feeding him with fresh bodies and stuff like that. But it's so dreamlike. And I really feel like he was in the pocket when he made this one, from the way he filmed it. The soundtrack, just everything about it is so weird. And in my opinion, it's just his best made movie. Yeah.
I could probably see that. It feels a lot more polished than some of his earlier stuff. Well, I mean, but at the same time, that was 88. Frankenhooker was 90. I mean, Frankenhooker seems a lot more polished than the Basket Case does, but it still has that grittiness to it, like the city and stuff like that. I don't remember. Does Brain Damage have that same feel too, or is it because I mainly remember in like an apartment?
Yeah, this didn't have that like gritty, grimy vibe as much as the other ones. He's still like I still think it takes place in New York, but yeah, it's kind of an internalized thing because he starts kind of losing his mind. So throughout the movie, he's like locks himself away in his apartment or goes hunting for people. But every time he hunts for people, there's this weird, like when he starts hallucinating, the movie takes on this whole different shimmering look. But it does have a different feel than the rest of his filmography, I think.
Now, going back and talking about Henenlotter's films, when we did our interview if you guys haven't followed us, we're a part of a podcast called the Radpack Podcast. We have our own YouTube channel. We've got, you find us on audio platforms. And we did an interview with the writer of a newer movie called Destroy All Neighbors. And did he not say that somebody that was involved with Henenlotter's effects teams did the effects for that movie?
I wonder if it was Gabe.
It could have. I think it was, actually. If you go back and watch our interview, he talks about it on there. But that's a cool movie too. That kind of falls in the similar vein as a lot of these flicks is Destroy All Neighbors. We really put that one over just because, again, it really falls in the same idea of like these cool effect creatures and looking at Alex Winter as Vlad. Like, I mean, it was really, really well done. But I do remember him saying that somebody in that camp did
Gabe Bartalos.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right. He did it. Special makeups, legend behind Aylmer, Belial, and Frankenhooker, Gabe Bartalos, lend his considerable talents to the undead denizens of Destroy All Neighbors. So he's really kind of gotten great, because his older stuff was kind of crude. That was like the very beginning of his career. He didn't really know as much of what he was doing when he was doing stuff like Belial. But I forgot that he did that. So he's like really, really come a long way, man.
And that's you can tell like these effects in this are really top notch. Like they don't, they are high quality. Like, I mean, just the effects that he would have to do for like just some of the makeup and stuff like that, like the Vlad face and all that. Like, dude, it's really well done. So if you guys haven't checked out Destroy All Neighbors, I would say check it out. You can buy it on physical media now. I saw the DVD at Walmart. We each did a review on our channels for it. We did an interview with the writer on the Radpack podcast channel. So very, very cool. I think it's Shudder, right? You can see it on Shudder now.
Yeah, I think it's on Shudder.
So, but yeah, guys, I mean, that was our Frank Henenlotter ranking, Rank Frank. And it was so cool having you on here and talking about these movies, because, the more we talk about, the more I'm like, man, when we're done here, I want to go, rewatch Frankenhooker again, or rewatch, Brain Damage again. And they're just fun movies, and they're not ones that get talked about an awful lot. Like if you look about like a lot of this stuff, like Arrow did some of these Blu-rays, Blasket's just got a 4K. The sequels haven't seen, an edition in 12 years. Frankenhooker's, that needs a new edition. I mean, that's been on Synapse for a long time. So yeah, it would be interesting to kind of see some of these get a little bit more love, and who's going to put this stuff out next, because Frankenhooker is pretty universally loved. That I'm surprised hasn't had a 4K yet, because it would look great with all the neons in the city and all that other stuff too. So
yeah, I imagine something is coming for Frankenhooker and those other ones. Somebody's got to pick those up.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, guys, thank you for checking this out again. I love doing these little Saturday morning specials. I try to make it a little bit different every time. Maybe bring a guest on here. And Justin's, he's still got his 2 channels. He just recently rose Dead Couch from the grave.
That's right.
And his Justin David talks. He's, what do you got going on over there? You're always working on something over there on the talks. Who's in the sites now? I have a couple
ideas that I've worked that I'm working on. I did just drop, like Garrett said, I posted for the first time on Dead Couch in a few months, and I posted a review, my thoughts on Maxine on the Justin David channel. Something will be coming sometime soon. I've been so preoccupied trying to get this whole new setup figured out, so I'm still working out the kinks of actually recording videos. But
it looks great though. Sounds great.
Thanks, man.
Looks great. I think it was a good idea that you built that out, because it was just a dead space, really. Storage more or less. But
yeah,
I think it's going to really up your excitement to do the shows and whatnot too.
Yeah, 100%.
But are you gonna do like a Feldman redemption story? Because when are you going to see him? I'm going to see him in a couple weeks.
That actually probably will be my next video on that. There could be a redemption arc for Corey Feldman on the Justin David channel. I'm going to see him in a couple weeks, probably about the same time as you.
What's your date? My show is, I'm going to see him live. He's opening for Limp Bizkit. I think it's like July 31st here.
So I think I'm seeing him on like just the week before that. Yeah,
so it'll be interesting to kind of see
Feldman, Limp Bizkit, Riff Raff, and somebody else. But yeah, it's gonna be a crazy show.
It's gonna be interesting.
Maybe he'll knock my socks off, and it'll be a whole redemption arc.
I hope so. I mean, I think that would kind of be a nice full circle story, don't you think?
Yeah.
He brings you on stage, gives you a hug.
That's still my most viewed. Like, people still comment on that video every day with an opinion on that whole Corey saga.
Has he commented on it yet?
He's just like, not yet, unless he used like some kind of alt account or something.
Well, he did post something where he said all people do is take bad clips and splice them together and make YouTube
They're all
videos.
Bad clips, so I mean, find a good one.
So I don't know. I think he secretly called you out,
Well, I mean, the joke's on me, I guess, judging from his new. I should react to that new music video. The joke.
You should react to it and ask if he's talking about you, and then show like your video clips and stuff.
That would have been dope if he would have like showed some clips of my video in the video, just like talking shit on me. Fred Durst directed that video too.
I love it. I'm happy he's hooking up with them. I'm happy he's getting a little bit more eyeballs back on him. I like the Feld dog.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
Hell yeah. But guys, thank you again for checking this out. You can find us at the Rad Pack Podcast if you want to see more stuff that we've done. Like we said, we have collaborated together before on this channel, but it was years ago, and I'm afraid to go back and watch some of those early videos.
Oh, I'm the same way on my channel, dude. Seriously.
But we've come a long way. But guys, thank you again for checking this out. This is Garrett at Born2beRad, and like always, stay